everybody. Welcome back. I'm Howie Howard from Mr. Furious Records. And today on Dat Fury Radio, returning guest, calling back to the long play days, Til Willis. What's going on, Til?
Woo! Here I am.
Here you are. You have a new record coming out.
I do. Glass Cactus.
Glass Cactus, which is one of the fun. So I gave this record a good listen last night for the first time. And that was a fun, it's not quite an Easter egg, but I'm listening to the songs and I'm wondering so Glass Cactus. What's that going to be? When's it going to come up? Whatever. And then toward the end of the record, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
Maybe my favorite song on the record, Recovering Sunday, it makes an appearance.
When I think of a title for a record, I don't like it when the title is just the title of a song, because I feel like it puts too much pressure on that song to represent everything, and I would rather have something that is more descriptive about the record in general. And sometimes it comes from a lyric, and this time, as I was thinking about different titles, and nothing really stuck until I was like, what about just doing Glass Cactus? And what that represents in that song, I think kind of speaks to the record to give it, and that's why it works as a title, at least in my brain.
Definitely. It works perfectly. And, we'll take a bit of a journey to get there. But I want to get into the music. So let's go ahead. I'm going to play I Had an Army. And I want we'll give the listeners, a little while to absorb the start of the song and kind of catch the vibe before we speak on it.
Okay.
So does it demystify things too much if I ask if you had an army?
No. I let them go years ago. It cost too much to keep them around.
Fair enough.
One thing I'll point out, and this does speak to the whole record, is right there at the beginning. You can really hear that snare rattle happening, and I love that. And all this record was cut live in one room together, which is why you get that. I love that. To me, that is just so quintessentially rock and roll. This is another album we recorded in the barn. Oh, here's a good solo from Brad.
Yeah, so I was going to save the production questions, but you kind of went ahead and
Well, it just seemed like the time to go ahead and jump in, because I just, as you know, when you're doing a record and you have your production choices, and sometimes you're listening back and you go, well, maybe you should clean that up a little bit. But, who wants it to be sterile? And like I said, especially since we were all cutting all the basic tracks live in one room, which So this is the second album we've recorded in Austin's barn. Grinding of the Stars, we set up in the hayloft and recorded up there. This time we're in an interior room, which is our rehearsal space. And so everything's a little more compact and things bounce around a little more, but it just gives such a good feeling, particularly for the type of songs these are, to be done that way. So everything is 2 guitars, bass drums, and a scratch vocal were all cut live in the room. And then some of the overdubs were done together as well. We'll get to another song on here where Bradley McKellop, who plays guitar in the band with us, he and I just were going to weave together our solos, and we set up and just did that live. So that's all going to come back around in here. And, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had an army.
Yeah, the production, you can really hear the barn on this record, and I love that. I agree with you about the rock and roll. I didn't know it was cut live, but that makes complete sense. And even like I felt like the drums are kind of off to the right in the stereo field a lot of the time, just a little bit. Well,
as you know, I mean, it's when you do that kind of production and you are recording live in a room, it kind of makes some choices for you. Like you go to mix and, I can't bring up the kick drum anymore because there's too much bass leakage here, or vice versa. But it also cements things together. It provides this glue that helps capture the energy. And then to take that all a step further, for the first time on this album, there's a whole side of the barn that used to be the dairy side. So it's all concrete. And there's like 2 separate rooms, one that's smaller and then one that's really long, where they would obviously have the hay in there for the cows to be eating while they were being milked or whatever. And so we use that as the echo chamber on this whole record. So, you're playing with the physicality of the location, where to set up the sending speaker and where to set up the receiving microphone, how you want it to come off the wall. And so for the songs with drums and stuff, we used the longer room, and it sounded best to me to have the microphone about halfway down the room, kind of picking up the reflection midway off the wall, which was kind of cool playing around with it that way. And for the more acoustic ones, I used the smaller room with just the speaker and the microphone kind of cat-a-corner from each other. But again, that really kind of, by making that production choice to do it that way, you're committing, you can't go back once it's done, and it's going to glue some things together in a way that kind of become their own character in the movie that you're making. Like that sound of the concrete barn echo chamber, it's a character that comes up in all of these songs.
So the reverb chamber was live as you were tracking as well, or that's added later?
I added it later.
Okay.
I added it later. But just because then I could have playback coming out of the speaker and walk around in the chamber and kind of move the mic or move the speaker to where it sounded good to me.
Yeah. Well, and that will kind of, we can save this, but at the end of the following episode, we have a little treat for listeners. Yeah, we'll talk about reverb chambers a little bit. So this is a Til Willis and Erratic Cowboy release.
Yes.
And you mentioned the band, so that's Eric Binkley on bass, Austin Sinclair on drums, Bradley McKellop on guitars and backing vocals.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah. So then that's the core. That's our band. That's Til Willis and Erratic Cowboy. And then, we had some guests come in and play on this one, such as your old partner on the long play listening party, Nate Holt, played great keyboards on several of these tracks, including this next one we're going to play.
Including this next one, 10 Miles a Days, which is one of my 2 favorite tracks on this album. So here we go. 10 Miles a Days. Featuring Nate. What's up, Nate? Oh man, it just feels really good. Really good.
The title for this song came from my daughter after a long car trip. Oh, it just feels like we've been driving for 10 miles of days. And I was like, oh, that's just brilliant.
That is brilliant.
It reminds me of some of the little things, some of the Beatles titles that they would get from Ringo, saying something like "It's been a hard day's night."
Totally. Yeah, when I listened to this last night, I hadn't realized that Nate actually played on it.
Yeah.
Sounded good, Nate.
We're very happy to have him come in and do it.
So I pulled that factoid / credit off the Bandcamp page for the 10 Miles of Days single.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing the singles you put out in advance of Glass Cactus, they have like B-sides with them, right?
Yep, all have non-album B-sides, which were great songs. Just when I was putting together the running order, things don't always make sense there, but they were fun songs to do. The B-side for this being a song called "Strange Sense of Justice," which I hated to take off the album, but it just wasn't working in the running order. And it came out as the B-side for this first single, 10 Miles a Days, because I felt like it was, an important statement I wanted to make and have out there at this time period. So yeah, go check out Strange Sense of Justice, the B-side to this one. We've got a music video for that one out too, which,
cool.
In this day and time, music videos, whatever, I just think they're kind of fun to do, especially in a very low-budget, artistic way. And it's like, I don't take them that seriously.
Definitely. So yeah, tilwillis.bandcamp.com, links below or in the notes of wherever you're listening. And there's B-sides to each of the singles: 10 Miles of Days, Homecoming, and Lost.
Yeah. So this next one that's coming up here with Homecoming features a guest, another person Mr. Chance Dibben, who releases music as Selvage. I had him.
You've collaborated with many times.
Yes. He's doing his sonic manipulations here. You can hear him at the intro there, and on several of the tracks. I wanted that flavor, so I would send him stuff and say, hey, can you manipulate this and send it back? And that was fun.
Cool. So that collaboration and the stuff you guys have done together, it sounds like that is actually leaked into your creative process to where now you can hear maybe early on where you want Chance to do his thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, and we've done now several albums as Concrete Cedars, me and Bradley McKillop and Chance. And that's, it's a great outlet for us all being experimental and as weird as we want to be. But yeah, when it's doing something more conventional like the songs here, occasionally I'll hear something and go, I could sit here and mess around with it and probably come up with something too, but why not reach out to somebody who's doing this every day and have a bit of his flavor come in here, which I'm happy to have. I think it sounds great. Must be
So speaking of chance, within the past week, and I don't remember exactly which day, I was looking for a second in my plays, see if I could find it, but a song I know you know means a lot to me came up completely organically in my shuffle, and it was from, you're going to have to help me with the names here, but your first collaborative album with Chance.
So the Willis Selvage album, yeah.
Willis, and it's the one that contains the lyric, "Today's a day, not two."
Yeah, that's the name of the song. Yeah.
Okay. And that, and I know you know this, but, and this is also going back to an old long play episode, but that's a phrase, that's actually become a really meaningful touchstone in my life, and a phrase that I have thought about a lot as I've, dealt with a lot of loss and a lot of challenges in the past couple of years. I have, and Carrie Ann would tell you, I will actually say at times, today's a day, not two. And that's a poetry. I'm telling this story. I'm coming back around and telling the story again, but that's a line you pulled from some poetry. Is that right?
So, yeah, that album, Chance gave me the titles for all of the songs and the soundscapes he had created, and then I wrote the lyrics and melodies and put guitar stuff to all that. So I forget which poet came up with that title, but he pulled all the titles from various books of poetry and stuff that he has. So he would be the person to ask. I forget who came up with that title, but it is one that resonated obviously with me, and then I wrote the lyrics for that song. Yeah.
I'll find and link to that episode because I'd kind of forgotten the poetry aspect, and I had been thinking that was an original Til line. And you've got great lines, but that doesn't happen.
Nope, that's not one of them, but it is great, and I was happy to write to him. I can't always do that, but with that album, it just kind of worked and things came to me.
Yeah, you sing it like it's yours.
Probably because I've never read the poem.
Sometimes it works best that way.
I probably would have tried to make the lyric more like the piece of poetry that Chance was referencing, but because I didn't know those titles, it freed me up to just kind of, in fact, I didn't know that he had taken it from any of that. I just thought he was giving me a title for this piece of music he was sending me.
Yeah.
Wrote to, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well, I didn't mean to talk over all of Homecoming.
Homecoming's fine.
A real river.
I actually wrote Homecoming. I was driving up to St. Joe to play a house show, and I'm driving up, and as I'm getting close to the city, I see like these fireworks going off, and I'm like, what the hell are fireworks going off? I'm one of those people it's kind of, if I see a flag at half mast, I immediately ask, well, what happened? Why is the flag at half mast? Mm-hmm. And I, thank goodness there's a website for that, because my wife gets tired of me asking. Halfstaff.com, I believe it is, and they'll tell you. But same with the fireworks. Why are there so many fireworks? This is just a random whatever Saturday night in October. And in my brain, I was going through all like the things that it could be. And I finally landed on, maybe it's just like a homecoming game. And I'm not a sports person. And And I was like, well, maybe that's what it is. Fireworks over the highway must be a birthday or something else grand. Because it's October and it isn't anything I expected or planned, is the opening lyric. And it's just me thinking about that as it went on. And yeah, and that's where that song came from, was just driving to the gig and trying to remember those things, and just pull up and park and sit there and punch them in on my phone to remember.
Could be a homecoming.
Could have been. I don't know.
And we're on to Cross Creek.
Yeah. And, if you've driven the back way from Lawrence to Manhattan, Kansas, through Perry and on 24 or whatever, you've crossed over Cross Creek. And this was written driving to another gig in Manhattan. And there was a dead fox in the middle of the road and a dead squirrel about 10 inches from his mouth. And right as I was crossing the Cross Creek, and I don't know, I thought that was worth writing about. And that comes up in the second verse. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know anybody else who's put any line about a dead fox in a song, so yay me.
That's a super evocative image,
here
right?
It is,
Circle
right here.
of life and death, and predator and prey joined, in that moment.
And knowing that could have almost had it. That's that feeling to me, is it could have almost had it all,
That's it. Yeah.
And then another part of the song comes as I was driving home later that evening. I had a podcast on, and I don't remember which one now. I want to say I can't remember, an episode of Criminal or something, but in it, this older gentleman was talking about when he met his wife back in the day, and he said, and then she kissed me and I floated home. I thought, well, that's beautiful. So that comes in this third verse here,
That's good.
So it all becomes about a song about getting redemption.
Is that Nate again?
Nope, there's no keyboards on this one. That's all just
okay.
Bradley and I on guitar.
Wow.
And this is the song I talked about when the solo comes in. Brad and I set the amps up and the mics up and just ran through playing the solo, weaving together several times live in a room to get the solo at the end here. That was fun.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to think about this a lot because I take, so to visit both of our families, we go up 75. And so I actually take that back road through Perry pretty frequently.
And getting back to those solos, I mean, it's just, I love playing with Brad. And I loved his playing even before he was in the band. I back when he had his band Jasper, and I loved his songwriting and his playing then. And I recorded a couple of EPs for them, and that's how I really got to know him. And when we were going to release our album Dirt Flowers, I was like, yeah, it'd be nice to have another guitar player there to fill in some of the stuff I've just overdubbed on the record. And that's when Brad started playing with us. And I mean, people know him from playing with the Rose Line, and he plays in several other things now too.
Sure.
But getting to my point is, I always feel like he and I come from similar places of taste in what we might play guitar wise, which that allows it to kind of meld together. But he's a much more studious, schooled player, technically, than I am. I'm more of just kind of grab the thing and stab as I can, and have picked up a couple of things over the years. But that's that difference that makes it work. And so it's similar enough to work and different enough that it works. And so it's so much fun when, like, this song we wrote as we were writing it and recording it, we knew we were going to weave those guitars together. But it's been fun interpreting some of older songs that were before Brad was in the band to have that same kind of guitars weaving together thing, which is just so much fun to do. And I feel like, we've only gotten better at that the longer he's been in the band.
Yeah, and speaking of reinterpreting older songs, I think so this is going to come out a week from tomorrow. You have a show to promote, I think. Yeah,
we're going to be doing the album release show for this, the full band at Lucia on April the 12th, 7 p.m. is the big one we're promoting. I've got a couple of solo shows before them, but the big one I'm really pushing right now is April the 12th at Lucia here in Lawrence. We're playing the week before that at Auntie Mae's in Manhattan. And we've kind of deliberately kept the band from playing shows, waiting for this album to come out. So that's going to be fun to get in there and do those. And we're right now, the set includes the B-sides from these singles and all the songs on the record as well. And it's just fun figuring out how we're going to take those out and do them live.
So what's the best place if people want to look up show information? Is Facebook the best place, or what's best?
I try to keep my website, tilwillis.net, TILWILLIS.net, up to date. But then and through that you can find our Facebook or Instagram or Blue Sky. Try to put things through all those.
Very good. And I'll link to all that.
Cool. This last song here for this side of the record, Horizon Before Us to Love, is an acoustic tune. So it's me and Bradley McKillop and Nate Holt playing piano.
Very nice. I think the piano gives it a very Van Morrison-y feel, which totally. I hadn't clocked it, but it definitely does. That's lovely. All Are these songs you have collected slowly since the Grinding of the Stars, your last LP, or was there like a dedicated writing process?
No, these are songs that were collected since then that I thought would work well with an Erratic Cowboy album. This one, this one came from I saw somebody post during the middle of the pandemic about I think all we have is just the horizon to love. We've got to keep our love for the horizon or something like that. And I thought, well, it's a great statement about, not getting bogged down in the present and keeping an eye out for the future. And then the story told here wraps around just, holding on to those relationships that allow you to have that view that, whatever we're dealing with now, there's light on the horizon. And then, I've been reading an article about small towns, and one of the smallest is a town called What Cheer, Iowa. One of the smallest. And so I was like, let's put that in there as the scene for where this is happening between these two people in the song. So that in the first verse it mentions What Cheer, which is What Cheer, Iowa, which I've yet to go to, but someday I will.
Yeah. That's cool, because that's something that could easily slide by as not a proper noun, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. On a production note here, when Nate was playing, he just had his Nord. I was like, maybe something that has an upright piano sound, so he dialed that up and played it, and I wanted it to sound a little more antique. So I later reamped his part through this old 20-inch cone speaker that I have to give it that even more nasally kind of antique sound. And so that's kind of how it came, and I think it helped it sit really nicely in the track between the two acoustic guitars. Yeah, it sits beautifully, and I never would have guessed that anything like that had been done in the mix. It just sounds supernatural and fits right in. It makes me wish Nate could have played the piano in the house I grew up in, which was a huge upright, just enormous. It must have weighed, I don't know, but just massive. Sure, because a lot of those true uprights are basically a full grand piano just stood up the other way. It would be the size and weight of a grand. Yeah. I don't know how the strings all work out and everything inside, but just enormous. And it is the piano sound inside of me, right? And it's beautiful. Just because I grew up with it, it's the sound that I judge every other piano sound against. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was great. And I appreciate that Nate was okay with me being like, okay, I'm going to do some manipulation here to to this sound to make it do what I want in here. And so with a piece like this, obviously Nate wasn't cutting it live in the room. He overdubbed later. But I would still take that track back out to the echo chamber dairy side of the barn. And like I said, with the smaller room worked best for acoustics, and set it up and push the track through there and then add in that kind of that chamber reverb to it on all these. So that was so much fun. Well, it's lovely. Listeners, you can hear more of this music at tilwillis.bandcamp.com. Get show dates at tilwillis.net. All the links below. Til will be back in 1 week or two. We're talking about that, but we will hear the back half of the record soon. Thank you so much. Oh, absolutely. And stay tuned next week for more Dat Fury Radio.